Good morning all, and thank you for joining me for this assessment task 3, and I hope you enjoy my slideshow. We'll begin by talking about topic 1. This topic is sort of giving you an overview of the broader macroeconomic environment. This is something that directly influences our daily lives and the decisions that we all make. Right here, I've got before you 3 core macroeconomic indicators that help us understand this environment. The first one being GDP, or Gross Domestic Product. This is the total market value of all goods and services produced in a country over a specific time period. It tells us whether the economy is expanding or contracting. Another big one is inflation, as you can see there in the second bullet point. This is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services rises over a period of time. The inflation rate is linked with good normal, but too little or too much can disrupt purchasing power, such as what I'm talking about there is hyperinflation or deflation can really harm the value of our money. Unemployment is the percentage of our labor force that is actively seeking but is unable to find work. High unemployment can signal weak demand for labour, while very low unemployment may increase labour costs. Now, you may be asking, why do these matter to us? These are just indicators, and they're not numbers that form a story. But this story is what we call the business cycle, which is sort of defined as the natural rise and fall of economic activity over a certain time, and describes natural fluctuations in a country's economic activity. When GDP is rising, inflation is stable, and unemployment is low. We're likely to experience an expansion phase, which is just an increase in economic activity or an increase in GDP. That's when consumer confidence is high. However, on the flip side, if GDP declines and inflation drops, we are likely to be heading into a recession. Now, topic 2 here is focused on Australia. And the recent Trump tariffs imposed on us by the US under the new Trump administration reduced demand for our exports, particularly in sectors like agriculture and mining, where Australia has extremely valuable and strong sectors there. Using the aggregate demand and aggregate supply model, we can effectively see a fall in export demand, which shifts at the aggregate demand leftward, as you can see on the graph there, which my face is actually partially blocking. Hopefully you can see that. What this does is lead to a lower GDP and higher unemployment in the short run. This can impact business confidence and investment decisions across the entire Australian economy. But the impact doesn't stop there, you see. As trade tensions and supply chain disruptions dampen investor confidence, an increase in economic uncertainty is almost inevitable. This translates into riskier international operations, reduced pricing power, and volatile input costs. These factors can directly affect Australian companies' strategic planning in the long run, especially if we're exporting to America. And yeah, the graph there is very self-explanatory. In the USA, on the other hand, it tells a very different story. Now, the tariffs imposed by Trump were designed to protect domestic industries in the US by making foreign goods, like the ones Australia exports to America, more expensive domestically. Using this, again, aggregate supply and aggregate demand model, the short-term aggregate demand may shift right. The long-term demand may shift right due to increased domestic production and investment in protected sectors. But over time, the cost will push up inflation, and the aggregate supply curve leans left due to more expensive imported products. Raising prices will make the American economy suffer. It can weaken the trade balance, and it can actually weaken industrial competitiveness for America too. So there is that, and that graph there is due to high production costs and supply chain costs, which explains the rightward shift in demand. Now here we have topic 3, behavioral and traditional economics. Well, these sort of assume these are definitely interrelated. However, traditional economics assumes that people are rational and that we make decisions logically based for our well-being. Things like when it comes to food, it suggests that with full information about the health impacts, we'll naturally choose the healthier option. But behavioral economics shows us that this is often not the case. We understand that people are influenced by emotions, habits, and mental shortcuts. A good example of this is when we might intend to eat well. However, when we feel tired or stressed, we have the impulse to, buy junk foods. That's present bias, what we call present bias, where short-term gratification outweighs long-term benefits, and it is very prevalent in today's society. And the environment plays a role too. If unhealthy options are easier to access or more visually appealing, we're nudged in the right direction without even realizing. Traditional economics, on the other hand, assumes people are rational. So what that effectively means is that, they make choices to improve their health compared to behavioral economics, which is often the opposite. Next is biases and inconsistencies. Behavioral economics highlights something very important, that our choices are often inconsistent over time. Someone might plan on eating healthy all week, but by Friday and Saturday rolls around, they're ordering fast food every single day of that week. This is due to what's called time inconsistency. We value immediate rewards more than future benefits. Another good one here is status quo bias. The status quo bias makes us stick to familiar habits, like buying the same unhealthy lunch every day, even when we want to change. These biases show that decision-making isn't always stable or logical, and that understanding these patterns help organizations to better shape policies and understand their economic environment better. A very good example of this is called the gambler's fallacy, a belief that recent outcomes are unlikely to be repeated and that outcomes that have not occurred recently are due to happen soon. Things are just due to happen. This is a definite bias. Now, topic 4 here is developments in the AI and implications for inequality in the labour market. AI is obviously transforming the market, there is no doubt about that. Using a basic microeconomic labour market framework, we can think of the market as split into two groups, skilled and unskilled labour. It's very simple. The skilled labour market, where AI often acts as a complement and enhances the workforce. They use tools to process information faster. This can raise productivity greatly and therefore increase demand for their labour. This is seen in the graph here when there is a demand shift to the right, increasing both employment and wages for skilled workers. However, conversely, in the unskilled labour market, AI can be a substitute. Self-checkout kiosks, delivery drivers, and generative software analysts, just to name a few occupations, reduce the need for routine tasks. This can lead to job loss and shifts the demand left, as you can see in the graph there. That should actually say unskilled labour market graph, I think. This shift demands left and reduces both wages and job opportunities for people involved. AI boosts demand for high-skilled workers and reduces demand for low-skilled workers. Unless there's a significant reskilling or policy intervention, wage inequality is likely to increase. And that is all. Thank you so much for listening.